The 1950s, a time of sock hops, drive-ins, and surprisingly strict laws. You get ready to have your poodle skirt knocked off because some things that were totally normal back then are now completely illegal. From everyday habits to wild practices, you won't believe what made the list. Let's dive into 10 things from the 1950s that are now illegal. Number 10. Public spitting. In the 1950s, public spitting was a common sight, but it is now illegal in many places due to health and hygiene concerns. This seemingly harmless act can spread germs and diseases, contributing to the transmission of illnesses like tuberculosis and the flu. Additionally, public spitting is considered a nuisance and disrespectful in many cultures, as it creates an unsanitary and unpleasant environment for others. The criminalization of public spitting reflects a growing awareness of public health and hygiene. By discouraging this behavior, authorities aim to create cleaner and healthier communities for everyone. While public spitting may have been a more accepted practice in the past, it is now widely recognized as a harmful and inconsiderate act that has no place in modern society. Number 9. Selling fireworks to kids? Step right up, folks, for a blast from the past, literally. Remember those sizzling summers of the 1950s when firecrackers were king? We're talking cherry bombs that packed a punch, whistling bottle rockets soaring sky high, and sparklers that painted the night with shimmering trails. Relive the thrill of lighting a black cat firecracker, the anticipation before the bang, the smoky scent of sulfur filling the air. These vintage novelties, once the highlight of every 4th of July, are now relics of a bygone era. While they're no longer legal for sale, these nostalgic treasures evoke memories of carefree childhoods and dazzling displays. Own a piece of history, a reminder of a time when fireworks illuminated not just the sky, but the hearts of every kid. Number 8. Child labor in agriculture and small business. In the 1950s, child labor in agriculture and small businesses was a common sight. Children as young as 5 years old worked long hours in fields, factories, and shops, often in hazardous conditions. They were deprived of education and play, their childhood stolen by the need to contribute to family income. Today, such practices are illegal in many countries. Laws have been enacted to protect children from exploitation and ensure their right to education and a safe environment. However, child labor persists in some parts of the world, particularly in developing countries where poverty and lack of enforcement remain challenges. The fight against child labor is an ongoing effort, requiring awareness, advocacy, and commitment from governments, organizations, and individuals to ensure that all children have the opportunity to thrive and reach their full potential. Number 7. Segregated public spaces. In the 1950s, segregation was a stark reality in the United States, with public spaces divided based on race. This meant separate water fountains, restrooms, schools, and even entrances to buildings. Black Americans were often relegated to inferior facilities, denied equal access, and treated as second-class citizens. These discriminatory practices were deeply unjust and perpetuated a system of inequality. The civil rights movement of the 1960s challenged these segregationist laws and practices, leading to landmark legislation like the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. While legal segregation is now a thing of the past, the fight for true equality continues, as the legacy of segregation and systemic racism still impacts society today. Number 6. Open-air burning of trash. In the 1950s, open-air trash burning was a common practice, but it is now illegal due to its harmful effects on the environment and human health. The smoke produced from burning trash contains pollutants such as particulate matter, carbon monoxide, and dioxin, which can cause respiratory problems, cancer, and other health issues. Additionally, open-air burning contributes to air pollution and climate change. The transition away from open-air trash burning has led to the development of more sustainable waste management practices, such as recycling and composting. These practices help to reduce the amount of waste that is incinerated, which in turn reduces air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. Number 5. Unlicensed backyard meat processing. Step back into the 1950s, a time when backyard barbecues weren't always so innocent. Imagine families gathering not around a gleaming grill but a makeshift operation, unlicensed backyard meat processing. This wasn't your friendly neighborhood butcher, it was a wild west of unregulated slaughter and preparation. No health inspectors, no hygiene standards, just raw meat exposed to the elements, potentially riddled with bacteria. Think unsanitary tools, questionable storage, and the risk of contamination lurking in every bite. This wasn't just a culinary gamble, it was a public health hazard. Thankfully, these practices are largely relics of the past, replaced by stringent regulations that protect us from the dangers lurking in the shadows of unregulated meat processing. Number 4. Open carry of alcohol containers. In the 1950s, a simpler time, some might say the open carry of alcohol containers was a common sight. Imagine men in sharp suits, fedoras perched atop their heads, casually strolling down the street with a bottle of whiskey in hand. Women in elegant dresses, perhaps returning from a luncheon, discreetly sipping from a flask tucked in their purses. This was the reality in many places where public consumption of alcohol was not as heavily regulated as it is today. Fast forward to present times, and this practice is largely frowned upon, even illegal in many jurisdictions. What changed? Societal attitudes towards alcohol consumption evolved, leading to stricter laws aimed at curbing public intoxication and related issues. Number 3. Corporal punishment at home. In the 1950s, corporal punishment was a common practice in homes as a means of disciplining children. Parents often used physical methods such as spanking or hitting to correct their children's behavior. This was considered a normal and acceptable way to raise children at the time. However, over the years, our understanding of child development and the effects of physical punishment has evolved. Research has shown that corporal punishment can have negative long-term consequences for children's emotional and psychological well-being. It can lead to increased aggression, anxiety, and depression, as well as damage the parent-child relationship. As a result, corporal punishment is now illegal in many countries, including the United States. While it may have been a common practice in the 1950s, number 2, smoking in schools and hospitals. Step back in time to the 1950s, where smoking was a common sight in schools and hospitals. It's hard to imagine today, but back then, teachers lit up cigarettes in the staff room and patients puffed away in their hospital beds. Smoking was seen as a sophisticated and glamorous activity, not the health hazard we know it to be today. These practices seem shocking now, but they were perfectly legal and accepted at the time. It wasn't until the 1960s that the link between smoking and lung cancer became widely known, leading to changes in legislation and public perception. Smoking in schools and hospitals is just one example of how societal norms and laws have changed over time. Number 1. Lead in gasoline and paint. In the 1950s, lead was a common ingredient in gasoline and paint, a seemingly harmless addition that boosted engine performance and created vibrant, long-lasting colors. However, this convenience came at a steep price. Lead, a neurotoxin, silently wreaked havoc on public health, particularly children. Lead exposure can lead to a range of health issues, including developmental problems, lower IQ, and behavioral issues. The dangers of lead in gasoline and paint were not fully understood until much later, leading to its eventual ban in many countries. Today, leaded gasoline and paint are relics of a bygone era, a reminder of the hidden dangers lurking in everyday products. While their use is now illegal, their toxic legacy lingers in the environment. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for latest updates about the cinema industry.